Am I on now? Yes. No. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for being here today. Very excited about what we can learn and glean from today. But before we get started, I'm going to ask Claire to say a quick prayer.
Thank you. Let's pray together. Our God, we thank you for this space that we can gather and we can dream the today, the tomorrow, and the future for St. Mark's. Let us be open to your leading. Let us be kind to one another. Let us be hopeful for the future, for all those you will bring to us, who we may learn from and grow in fellowship. We pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So before we get started, I wanted to give you kind of a brief background. So this retreat started based on the Sacred Hospitality group, and it's also sponsored by Leadership Council. We wanted to find basically important new avenues or reinforce some of the things that we're already doing to just really make people feel welcome. And so today, at least for the first part, we're going to spend a little bit of time up front here today to generate ideas for the next steps for the congregation. So it could be in the immediate term and also in the longer term. But the goals for the entire retreat are to identify practices that can deeply welcome anyone who is either part of the church, who we think we want to reach out to, the larger community, provide ways that we can more fully engage in the work of the church. Okay, so what we're going to start out with in this first half hour will be to just start brainstorming different ideas. Okay, so as we start brainstorming different ideas, we'll spend some time on that. And then what I'd like to do is have you, and you have your sticky notes, you're going to vote on some of these ideas and what you think would be a good, valuable priority before we move to the breakout sessions. Okay? Yeah.
If I could add one thing. If you are participating via the live stream, if you're having any difficulties anticipating getting on the Zoom when we go to breakouts, you can use Jimmy Moore's email to make that contact. So if you're on the live stream, you're in the right place, but when we go to breakout groups, if you're not sure about the Zoom connections, email Jimmy Moore at smumc.church.
Yep, and Jimmy will put it in the chat. Yep. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and we want to start with the big question, and the question is also posted right up there as well. So what does a church, any church, doesn't have to just be St. Mark's, but what does any church have to do to get people to think, wow, I'm really grateful for this church. I'm really grateful. I just want to say thank you to this church. You just feel that connection. What does any church need to do? Jimmy?
Just want to make sure people speak in one of the mics and they're responding.
Okay. And don't be shy. Yeah.
At the very beginning, at the very beginning, you said people that are in the church or people we want to have to be part of the church, something to that effect. We're right practically next door to this brand new hospital, which will of necessity be bringing a whole different bunch of people to this part of town that used to be down at 2nd and, It seems to me as though there could also be people coming into the church that aren't anybody we know from Adam and aren't anybody we ever thought we wanted to have come to church, but they might really need to be here with us. And so I would really like to see them also be part of the people that we want to work on, because there are people who need us that may not know that they need us yet, but they do, and they're going to come through our door. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Will you ask your question again, please? Ask your question again.
Okay, so what does any person need to say to basically be grateful for any church? Yeah. that you need a mic. I was gonna write it down, so thank you. No, thank you.
Most of you probably know now that I've been spending the majority of my time for the last year and a half sending out cards to people in the congregation because we've all been so separated. And being somebody who comes from the choir, who has rehearsals on Sunday morning, I haven't had up until now much of an opportunity to be a part of a Sunday school, and I'm rehearsing before the worship service. And I think maybe the most important thing that happens is that people feel they are a part of a congregation and know other people in the congregation and have an opportunity to eat dinner with other people in the congregation and work on committees together. And I think it's really important that we come up with some fun activities, like go back to things like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, because I think we don't know one another. I don't know one another. I'm sending cards out to people who are names and addresses, and I have no picture in my head of who they are, or do they have a family? Are they, I'm a lot more knowledgeable about the people who are living in Meadowood, Beltrace, and Redbud, who are mostly by themselves. But I think we need to work hard on letting us know one another.
Okay, great, thanks.
Glenda is next.
Okay, I'll be fast, Charlie, so it's your turn. One of the things that I think we need to try to do is to help. Well, no, what I think people are grateful for is when they have a problem. They're ill, there's a death in the family, there's something that they need commitment and help with, and I think our church has done a good job of that, and obviously I think we need to keep working on that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Glenda said what I was going to say. No. So I think two things. First of all, they feel, I think I'll talk about me, and I think other people feel the same, similarly, and that is the church needs to be attentive to their interests and needs. And that could be spiritually, it could be emotional kind of support for people, okay, when they're ill or passing of a church, of a member, whatever, but attentive to the interests and needs of the people.
Okay, so I'm gonna follow up with that.
Yes,
So attentive, when I hear about some of the other
Sure.
things that have been said, to be more proactively,
Sure.
be
So-
ready for it, or only when we hear about it?
Be responsive to it.
Be
okay?
responsive, yeah.
You part of that responsiveness is anticipatory, okay? But I'm talking about being responsive once those needs are known,
Yeah.
okay?
Okay.
And so that's one thing I want to say. And since I have the mic, I'm going to say the second thing. And that is, I think there's an opportunity for us, similar to what someone else said, about the hospital coming to this side of town. But we're in the middle of a residential area. We're in the middle of a residential area, apartment complex with seniors in it just a block away. We have students all around us. So how can we become more of a community church? A community church. So I'll stop.
Thank you. I think people feel grateful for the church when they leave the worship or the educational experiences or the connection experiences feeling charged up and challenged. So I think people feel grateful when they're pushed a little bit to grow spiritually, to become more involved in the work of the church. I think they need to feel that challenge. And I think to feel that challenge and to grow, they need, so that, I don't know if this might be a part two, Sherry, is a safe place to ask all the questions.
One portion of our church is an important portion of folks that are raising children. That was real evident in today's service, and you've heard the comment, it takes a village. People are really grateful for a church that provides more than a good Sunday school classes, but other ways for the children to become friends and to be mentored in good ways by the adults of the church. Ways that are fun, but ways that they learn.
I actually want to follow up with this one. Can we follow up with this a little bit more?
Sure.
So when I saw church again this morning too, there's, you see all these kids, right? And so mentoring the children and engaging with children, would you expand that at all beyond children, or what do you think?
Well, things have changed a lot from when most of us were raising children. Some of them are helping with grandchildren at this point. But families now have many activities that draw children kind of away from the good work a church community can do. I think in particular about youth sports, which I was very involved with as a coach. So I'll just kind of say we got new challenges. But I think we all kind of remember, for example, how special a church camp could be for those of us that went to a church camp. For the family retreats this church used to have every year. Those all take work and organization, but I think you need a time where the kids can be together and the parents of those kids can be together and share and develop the friendships they need that'll carry them through the really challenging work of raising kids in this world.
Great, thank you.
I remember years ago, we would pick up a IU student and bring her to St. Mark's. And I believe several people did that, and that's one of the things I'd like to see is if we could get more students, college students, whether they're Ivy Tech or IU, to be more involved with St. Mark's. I remember Tom Schaefer had an activity group, and in the Sunday afternoons and other times, they would have to get together so that they could socialize and become more part of the church. One Sunday, I believe we had tables spread out, and we were fortunate enough to be able to sit with some, and had a little small discussion group and maybe a cracker or something and drink. But we were able to sit down and talk with the students a little more. And then I think what we did is we still got back together, and we had a small worship service. Things like that. That's what I'd like to see. And one more thing just came to mind. Once upon a time, we had Carrie Newcomer here, and it was very interesting. She's very spiritual, and we had an afternoon where she had poems and songs, and had the people who were here sort of join in with her, and that was very inspirational.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here personally and online. I guess similar themes, what I would bring up, but I would just put a word to it. I think demographics is important from the perspective of it's hard to be everything for everyone, but I think you have to be intentional to think about the groups within your church that you want to appeal to. So if you look around the room, it's obvious there's a demographic here where most everyone here is above 50, okay? Except for maybe one person who's I'm nodding at or looking at right now. But I appreciate that we potentially have more free time to come here, but I think that we all, when we think about things we like doing together, that gives you a certain thought process. But I think if we're intentional about thinking about demographics we want to appeal to, whether it's a youth or it's parents with children of a certain age, or again, we talked about a lot about people who have had hospitalizations and taking food to them. That can be across age demographic, but it tends to lead to a different demographic that's currently here. So I just think that if we start wanting to think about how to become more inclusive and to have people want to come here or have a positive experience coming here, you do have to put demographics up there. Like you look at the perspective of, do we want to have a parents' day out like the YMCA does sometimes? Are we offering the daycare for Sundays? So I think, again, who are you wanting to reach? Who do you feel you may not be reaching or have a sizable demographic within the representation of the church? And you can focus activities towards those. I think when we had the picnic, it's very cross-demographic. And that's wonderful to see the broad spectrum. And when we had breakfast, when it was appropriate around the time, it was cross-demographic, and you had a lot of people. And then you even had some people who may not have been getting a meal very often come. And that's great, that's fine. But I'm just saying is the more you're intentional about the demographics you're trying to appeal to, the more it may help you focus on the types of activities you may want and what that group needs that can bring them in and make them happy and safe and feel like they want to be here. So that's all.
I'd like to see an assessment done to see if there's any interest in a singles group again. Not that I'm single, but I have a daughter who is approaching middle age, who doesn't feel like she fits into, and there's been an effort made to try to gather younger folks in what used to be the XYZ group, but it hasn't worked. So anyway, I'd like to at least see an assessment because I don't, and the wow that we had in 1970, 52 years ago, that caused us to choose the church was the activities for the youth, the ones that we often lose after high school. And I know that we're making efforts in that area, but we're not there yet, I don't think, from what I hear.
So a couple of things. First, we have 8 people joining online. So a couple of them, Mary Wheeler said that people need to feel welcome, recognized, and wanted. And then Christy Mitzstopper said, building on the last idea about college students, building a young adult connection for those post-high school. We were just talking about that, right? And I was just going to say, from my perspective, and this is kind of preachery, but I'll go ahead and say it, I do think that many people will use this kind of language. They want to know how to understand and connect with what God is doing in the world. I think, and I think our surveys showed something like this, that we're very socially minded both in terms of our need to connect and in terms of our sense of justice, but we also need to be able to embrace directly God ways of talking about the world and interpreting the world. Anybody else?
I wanted,
I came to this church. I hadn't been in a church for a while. I'm retired clergy. And I came because it's an open church. And I'd heard wonderful things, open to all kinds of things. Not just the LGBTQ plus, but other people, other ways of thinking. And I appreciate Jimmy and Mary Beth and their openness theologically. That means a lot to me. A couple of the things I want to tag on to that. One of the churches I served, we started a singles ministry. And I'm not saying I'm volunteering, but I was...
That's volunteer!
I know. But I was one of the instrumental people in getting that going, and it's still going. And that was over 20 years ago. It's still going.
Be a good volunteer, actually, yeah.
I'd be willing to help out.
Yeah.
The thing, and for, the kids, my kids are post-college age, just barely. And they're not big on church going. And I've given them that freedom because I didn't want mom's thumb as a pastor to, you have to do this. They grew up with some of that, but when they were old enough to choose for themselves, I said, okay. The church I was serving didn't care for that too much, but, I had to live with myself. One of the things that I've noticed with the singles ministry that we had, with any young adult or youth ministries, if you feed them, they will come.
Is there someone up there?
yeah, I was just going to say, St. Mark's is very white. And in terms of the demographics, I think there's an opportunity to be more deliberate in connecting with ethnic populations in Bloomington, not just black people, but other ethnicities as well. And I don't think people are just going to come voluntarily. I think it's going to take some one-on-one, some encouragement, some activities. Music is one of the things that has a way of appealing to large swaths of people. And I think that may be an opportunity there, even to invite them to be, those individuals, to be a part of the musical worship part of our service. And I don't know, I've never been to City Church, I've never been to Genesis, I've never been to any of the other congregations worship with them, but I understand some of them have a much more ethnically diverse population. So, but at any rate, is there something we can learn from them? But just based on my own personal experience, I think it's going to take more of a direct kind of outreach. I mean, no question about it. You and Mary Beth were big influences in our decision to come here, okay? And so someone else is that kind of influence. But I think it's going to take a more deliberate kind of approach and a continuous one. If we can celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday, we can do other kinds of things too, okay? And, but anyway, that's an opportunity.
I actually want to follow up, and it's not typical that the moderator wouldn't throw in an idea. So I'm going to break that rule, and I'm going to follow up with what you were saying too, because you mentioned the Martin Luther King holiday. Other mission types of outreaches might connect with certain types of demographics, right? And so that might also be an approach.
That sort of fits in with a flashback that I had of my son Christopher. I cannot remember now if he was maybe high school junior or senior. It could have been freshman in college. There were two things. One is they took a trip to South Carolina, and they stayed in an African-American church and sort of did mission work, helping them with their building and everything during that week. And I think that was a really big experience for him. Another is when a group, right after Homestead, Florida, was hit with the hurricane. The following spring, a group of them took off and went down and helped there for a week. And then another thing is a former member here who is in Boston, Massachusetts now as a doctor, Catherine McDaniel, when she was in college, had gotten with a Jewish singing group, and they came and presented a program to us one Sunday, which was, again, an outreach with a different faith group.
Let me say this, because Maria Schmidt says one way for us to be doing community is for those of us who speak to introduce ourselves. Some people online can't even see who it is, so we'll introduce us. So I'm Jimmy, and she also says in the early 90s there was a very active college young adult group. We had fun, and she says, what is the goal, mission of the church under various leadership? It will change the next 5 to 10 years, then who will we be? So that's the question about how we decide who we're going to be. And then Beth Crane said outreach efforts to the unhoused and drastically low-income population, for example, sack meals, little free pantry, blessing bags, that kind of thing.
We probably have time for maybe 1 or 2 more, because I'll explain what we're going to do right after. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I would like to say is, as a relative newcomer here, one of the things that I am most grateful for is the quality of worship that I think we experience in this place. And one of the things that leads me to is to say that I think that so often that what churches think in terms of is our programs that will attract people, and then they hope people will follow up on them. And I think a much more effective means that I have observed in a number of congregations that have a kind of vital ministry is that they create an event and actually then explore the possibilities in that event for how they might move on to something else, so that the people who are involved actually help make the decision about that. And I think there's a kind of reorientation of the way we think about program structure in the life of an institution like a congregation.
Okay, so, yeah. You're not on.
Hello? Okay. Yeah, I'm Jim. I am a member of the Sacred Hospitality Committee. And one thing I just wanted to mention and sort of summarize is that at one of our first meetings, one of the things that we tried to do is to try to define what our community at St. Mark's is. And I think we've touched on that a lot. But, and we've done a pretty good job of getting that, started to get that lined out. But there's still a few things that came up and that I haven't seen mentioned here. One is our adult or senior community. And these are the folks that are, and I've got a couple examples. My mother was confined to a wheelchair, so it wasn't too, she couldn't get around very much. And I also have a father-in-law who's 93 years old that lives in his apartment, but he can't drive. And so I know that he would love and welcome some company at some time. I don't know if we want to try to develop a ministry to where we can go and have some people visit some folks that are shut in, not just seniors, but shut-ins as well. And secondly, we have this whole new experience of having internet worshipers. And so what are we going to do to reach out to them and see what they might, what needs they have and what wishes they have?
All right. Great. Okay, so we'll have time. We'll do one more. I said one more, but we'll do one more. Yeah.
I'm Diane, and I'm not really going to offer a suggestion. I just want to say thank you for both our ministers and everybody involved with worship every Sunday, going to Zoom during COVID. I was amazed at how, I mean, that's a very progressive thing to do, I think. And you guys have really stayed up with it. And the other is your group, your hospitality group. This is a great time to stop and look and see what we want to do. And rather than just continue bringing up the old things, I think it's really progressive in your thinking to ask for advice and get people's opinions. I'm just happy you did it.
Thank you. Okay, so let me just, okay, I'm gonna take it. Let me just kind of give you an idea of what happens next. So you have your 7 stickies, and all of the different comments that you raised are fantastic comments. I had said to somebody earlier, so I had been gone for the past 2 weeks, and when I found out in church this morning that this was going to be live streamed, I thought, oh no, people aren't going to be willing to give comments or ideas, and you guys have been fantastic giving these comments, ideas, suggestions, and so on. So that has been excellent. What we are going to do now is I want you to take those 7 stickies, and those are your votes, right? And I want you to take a look at, of these things, what would you like the church to prioritize on, right? So if we had to create priorities, what should we prioritize? And so you can take all 7 of those Post-it notes and put it on one thing because you feel really strongly about it. You could put it on 7 different things because you like a lot of different things. Some of these that have been listed are relatively similar. There's some overlap. And what you'll do is when you go into your breakout sessions, you'll be able to take some of these priorities with you, but you'll also remember a lot of the things that came up in our discussion and go into some more fine-tuned detail. So I want to take maybe 5 minutes. We'll see how long it takes to vote, but about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes to go ahead and vote. So come on up. And anybody else need? Oh, did anybody not have their Post-it notes? You just need your sticky at this point, and you also have a card. We're going to set the card aside for now, but you also, so you have your Post-it notes, and you will just come up and post it over top of the one that you like. Okay. Any questions on? Do you want me to clarify?
I'm sorry, you can only vote for the lower ones.
I'm told the people
Online. Yep, perfect.
To the side of the one we like so that...
So other people can still read it. Yep. So come on up. Come on up and go ahead and start voting. You can sit back and kind of reflect on which ones you like. They're all socializing, yeah.
If I could ask a question, if you haven't yet, please look at your white card and see what number you have. And we're supposed to randomize it, but you know, I don't know how it's going to balance, so this is an informational question, okay? If you have a 1 on your card, could you raise your hand? Okay, thank you. You can put your hand down. How about 2s? Okay, thank you. And then 3s. Good. And 4s. Perfect. Thank you. Just so you have a feel for what's happening. Rebecca is summarizing. Can you just see her computer mind clicking away up here? And after that happens, she's going to share some findings with us. And based on your numbers, we'll be moving into some small groups. Okay? On the way to those groups, you'll find refreshments in Garton Hall, refreshments / glorious buffet. It's going to be really beautiful and amazing. And we ask that you pick up some snacks, drinks, and take them into your breakout room and enjoy them there, just for timing, etc. And while she's calculating, I'll tell you who's going where. How about that? Okay, so if you have a 1 card, you are in the group that is facilitated by Brenda and Jim Schaefer. You'll be in room 15. 15 is a conference room, sometimes referred to as conference room. If you have a 2 on your card, you're going to be working with Sherry and Diane in room 11. Nice. I like it. For those of you who have a number 3 on your card, you'll be going to room 13 with Ann Foster and with me. And if you have a 4 on your card, you'll be in room 8 with Charlie Nelms and Mary Beth Morgan. And
if you are online, check that, and you want to go into the Zoom breakout, go to the chat, and Jimmy has it posted on how to get into that Zoom breakout.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll open about 10 minutes.
Okay. So he'll open it at 2 o'clock. Okay. So, so a couple quick things. So I should have done this at the very beginning, and I'm so sorry I didn't. My name is Rebecca Slotograph. For those of you who may not know me, And I know I'm a newer member here, and I know some of you have been members for a long time here, and so it was great to hear from people who have been a member for a long time and from people who are more recent members. I love this church. And so I'm so excited to see all of the comments and the direction that we can take this. And so what I've done is basically tally as quickly as possible all of the different areas. And as we notice, some of these were fairly similar. What I want you to do is go into your breakout room knowing that there's some priorities, right? We also know some of the other things that have come up. But here are the priorities in terms of the top items. Keep connected with the senior community. Okay. Another priority is reaching the internet community. Being deliberate about connecting with other ethnic groups. Which is, these three are also related to this other one, which is outreach with other faith groups, with lower income groups. So again, this outreach. Make sure we have fun and socialize together. So as you come up with ideas in your breakout session, you might come up with ideas for that as well. And youth activities for people after high school. Youth activities, yep, for people. Okay, and the emphasis here was after high school, but we also have families with children is another big one. So keep children engaged, families with children. So there's a couple key themes here, right? How do we make sure that we keep our current members excited about being here and keep them engaged? But also, how are we proactive in reaching out to other groups? Okay, we've got a group of people who have since started watching service online. Or maybe they're a new group, okay, but now they're only watching online. Can we get them engaged some other way? Can we make sure that we reach out to the seniors? Can we make sure that we reach out to other groups? Can we make sure that we reach those families, new families, youth, and so on? Okay. Yes?
Can I ask a clarifying question around the youth activities for after high school? Is that youth or is that young adult, those in college or working in the world, or?
That was young adult. That was script error. Someone was talking about activities for younger people, and then it came into the singles and the people. What do we do after they graduate from high school to get them in? So college, singles, young adults.
If they're working or at school or whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to
But I think part of why, because we had some of that young adult connection here.
It's in several areas.
So, but I think, so we do have that young adult connection. I think a lot of it is high school, college, graduate school, kind of that group.
Or of that same age who are working or doing other things.
Yep, yep. Any other questions? Okay, so just so you know, we can reuse these sticky notes, so they're not all gonna, it's not completely environmentally, don't get too concerned. So we can reuse these sticky notes and we'll be good. And so Claire already announced where you will go for your Zoom breakout, or your Zoom breakout, and then also the room number for your actual breakout session. And then we will return to this room afterwards. So make sure you get your snack, because there won't be snacks coming back into this room, but just make sure you get your snack into your breakout room. We'll be coming back to this room about 3:15. Gives you plenty of time to discuss in your breakout, so it may be a little bit earlier, but we'd come back in here for the group.
So let's just say we'll start the live stream back around 3:10.
Okay, we'll start the live stream back at 3:10. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.